Just wanted to start off on behalf of the Ohio State football program. Want to express our sadness and our prayers to the entire University of Virginia, its football program, over the senseless killings that took place over this past weekend. Our prayers to the families and friends, certainly who have lost loved ones. It's tragic, senseless, and it pains me to understand why something like this would happen. And so our thoughts are with everyone there in Charlottesville.
Coach, thank you. We'll open up the floor today for questions. Dave Biddle, 24/7 Sports.
Seems trite to ask you about football now.
No, I know.
Josh Breyer receiving his first start. How did he grade out at right tackle? And just how do you feel like the offensive line overall is playing through 10 games now?
Josh graded out a champion, played well. When you play a full game, you get a real good, feel for where you're at and his preparation leading up to that game. When you're a backup coming off of the injury last year too, he was growing and building. The good thing for him is he was getting in games at times in our Bison package, but he graded out a champion, played well. A lot of plays he's got to get better at, but I thought we took a step in the right direction on Saturday with the offensive line.
Right behind him, Stephen Means, Cleveland.com.
Just come with some of the backstory behind the block punt.
Yeah. So every week we have a couple block punts that we work on, and then based on what we're seeing, we make adjustments in game. Lathan's been working hard. We have about 5 guys that we work at the punt blocks from different angles and different schemes. Lathan's one of those guys that's put a lot of work in, and what we do on Thursdays is we put on, in baseball, when those guys put on those gloves with the metal piece there to save them from jamming their wrist or breaking their hand when they slide into second base. We do the same thing. Josh Proctor in 2019 went to do the same thing and broke his hand. I said, that's it. We're not going to do that again. So we had to figure out a way to block punts without putting our hands and fingers at risk. So that's what he wears. He wears the gloves. And that's what our guys do. And so over and over again, he puts the gloves on, and we talk about putting the gloves on and then, working on the technique of blocking a punt. In game, we saw some things on the sideline, and Parker made a great adjustment. Said this is how we're going to do it. Not exactly the way we practiced it during the week, but Lathan was able to put that on the field. And then obviously, that was kind of a turning point in the game. I think that kind of helped us pull away.
Given some of the issues, the muff punch you've had over the last couple of weeks, has there been conversations to maybe try that more often?
We try. And there's certain times where, based on what they're doing, it's better to return it. And there's other times where you want to go after it. Now, when you go after it, there's a risk that goes with that. You bump into the punter. It's a first down and 15 yards, and that can be a momentum swing as well. So there's give and take there. We have gone after some, and they just the blocking scheme just didn't quite work out that way. There's a lot more challenges with the new style of the rugby punters with the shield, as opposed to maybe like 10 years ago. You saw more of the pro style where those guys would kick slide, and it was more of a in the pocket punt. Guys nowadays with the Australian rules punters, they can really be creative about where they go, and it becomes a different and probably more difficult challenge to block punts.
Right behind him, Dan Holt, 11 Warriors.
Ryan, you said after the game Saturday that Xavier hadn't been practicing much at running back. Is that something that he will do more going forward after playing the way he did Saturday?
Yeah, he's done both in his career. He had been practicing more at receiver recently, but he's done a lot at running back as well. He's spent really first couple of years at running back, and so you could see his running skills. I mean, he jumped right in, and it wasn't like we had to spend a ton of time with him on the tracks. He's got plenty of experience doing that, and we always kind of felt like he was more of a running back than he was a receiver, and then he's blossomed as a receiver as well. So him being able to provide depth right there has been huge, and he's done really good things when the ball's been in his hands.
What do you think it is about him that enables him to go back and forth between positions so successfully?
I think it's because he learned, coming through special teams, all the different ways to play football. You just learn so much playing all 4 phases. And he's done that. He's embraced it. You're playing out in space on kickoff return. You're learning how to avoid blocks. You're learning how to block people. You're learning how to catch the ball. When he's the kickoff return guy, he's done some punt return work in practice. There's just so many different things and skills that you learn playing special teams, and that's translated to him being productive on the field.
Fourth row middle, Pat Murphy, 24/7 Sports.
Brian, you
said competitive excellence probably as much as anything this year, and
Yep.
you guys have obviously done that well. You've got a game this weekend, but there's the big one coming in 2 weeks. How do you guys keep attention on Maryland, make sure no one's looking ahead to get to where you want to go before that game?
I think it's something that comes up every week. It comes up every year, this time of year. So what we try to do is like you said, the competitive excellence focus is something that we talked about early on, so that when we got to a moment like this, you don't just walk in a Tuesday meeting and say, guys, okay, we got to really focus on this week. Well, we've been saying this all along. And, March Madness starts the first week of the season around here. And so you just have to embrace that and understand what it means to bring it every single week. Now we're working, the game at the end of the year, every day out of the year. So that's not something that is out of the ordinary to know that that's always in the back of our minds, but that's like that every week. So our focus right now is on Maryland, going down there at 3:30, playing really good football, and then going from there.
Fourth row right, Cameron T. Robinson, The Athletic.
Ryan, kind of to expand on that, you mentioned even last week that you guys prepare for the game at the end of the year all year long. Right. I know you're not sitting here watching Michigan film, so what goes into preparing for big games on a weekly basis for you guys?
Well, I just think it's a mindset. It's something that we've done in the off season. We do all along. But right now, again, the focus has to be on how we play on Saturday, and that's building towards the end of the year and playing our best football in November, because we know we have to play our best. We have an opportunity to go 11-0 this weekend and still not have reached one of our goals yet. It's just sobering, but it's the facts. So we know that, and it's part of that building process, week in and week out, to be playing our best football in November, and that's what we focus on. And so we got a really good opponent here in Maryland. They've played some teams really well this year. And you look at the teams that they've played and the scores and what they've done. Mike's done a good job of recruiting some really good athletes there. I think Taulia is a very talented quarterback. They have some weapons on the outside. And they've played good on defense. I mean, I think they're stout over there, and they've played well this season. So, we've been in battles with these guys before. We've been in the same situation in 2018, and that game went into overtime. So, Mike does a really good job, and we're gonna have to play really well.
On Harris, what about him allows him to juggle so many things between work, school, and his foundation and still do it well?
I think it's the balance that he found growing up. His mom, Monica, certainly had a big part in all of that, and in making sure that he understood that football is something that he does. It's not who he is, and that balance is become more important now, I feel like, than ever before, with the exposure our players get and everything that comes with it. That balance is very, very important, because at some point football does end, and when it does, you have to find that balance in your life. And I think Paris found that at a young age.
Right next door, Spencer Holbrook, Lettermen Row on 3.
Ryan, Ty Hamilton played more run defense snaps against Northwestern and then played more pass defense snaps against in your last game against Indiana. What do you guys like about him on the inside, and have you seen him take a step forward? I think he had the second most snaps of any defensive tackle.
Yeah, no, I think he's playing his best football by far. I think you guys have seen it, graded out a champion. And I think you're seeing versatility there. I think you're seeing, like you said, strong against the run, powerful against the run, but also transitioning into the pass rush and pushing the pocket. Ty's gotten better every day. He works every day. He's there every day. And, we think he's playing at a starter level.
Dylan Davis, Dylan Gazette, third row right.
Was Dallin Hayden somebody in the summer that you looked at and said, that guy could play for us right now? Or that just kind of happened naturally as the season progressed and as you had to put him in there? I guess, how is his development? Has it surprised you at all, or did you see that guy as somebody who contribute?
I mean, the talent was there. It's a matter of how quickly can they assimilate, how quickly can they get into the program and the culture, and then can they sustain over an extended period of time with all of the things that we ask of them, academically, in the weight room, the preparation, just the daily grind of being a college football player as a freshman. That's really what you're not sure about a young player. And then sometimes, it takes a little bit longer for them to get on the field. For Dallin, he's been able to, when he's get on the field, first of all, he's taking care of the ball. It's the number one job as a running back. And then from there, he's been able to go play and not let the moment be too big for him. I think when you watch him run, he runs with good vision. He runs with, he's got good quickness, good feet in the hole. accelerates through the hole. And I think when I watch him, I think the best thing he's doing is just trusting his instincts and going out and play and not letting the moment get too big for him. So if he can keep building on that and growing on that, he's got a bright future ahead of him.
Right next door, Rob Aller, Columbus Dispatch.
Ryan, you got pretty good depth at wide receiver. I don't think there's a lot of people that would have said if you lose Jackson that you wouldn't miss a beat. How important is that, the reputation of that room in recruiting and what you've established here to be able to say whatever wide receiver you or whatever it may be?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, if you had said to me that was going to happen this year, I wouldn't have believed you, But here we are, and that's football. You have to overcome these types of things, and that's where depth becomes critically important. And understanding that when you come here to play. When you play, that's kind of up to you, and how fast can you get on the field, and how quickly can you get a starter level. But you're gonna have great opportunity, and our guys have taken that opportunity and run with it. But I think you can see the development, you can see the blueprint. You can see, how we do things schematically, fundamentally, the way Brian teaches. And so it's an exciting time to be a wide receiver at Ohio State.
Follow up, that said, what would Jackson give you right now? I mean, there are people who say, well, you haven't missed anything, you don't really need him, but what would he add to what the offense is?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to say now that we've played 10 games and not really had him available. But listen, Jackson, is one of the best receivers in the country, one of the best, slot receivers I've ever been around. So, he's been missed.
What's his status, if you can just follow up on that?
Yeah, no update at this point. Yeah.
Second row, right, Doug Lesmerises, Cleveland.com.
Ryan, you mentioned after the game that maybe you've been a little stubborn, is the word you used, in terms of trying to run the ball within short yardage. There's been sort of this toughness conversation this whole year that you guys have embraced, and you want to be that tough football team. Is short yardage like the way that best manifests itself, or what are the ways that any football team, like actually on the field in moments, shows toughness in your mind?
Yeah, I think the first thing is just physicality, how hard you play. We say relentless effort is 4 to 6 A to B plus 2, 4 to 6 seconds the length of a play, point A to point B, and then for 2 seconds past the cone or past the whistle, 2 steps past the cone. I think that's a big thing. Can you play with unbelievable effort week in and week out as hard as you possibly can? That's the first thing. And the second thing is really just the physicality of actually looking someone in the eye and knocking them back. There was a lot of great instances of great toughness. I look at Xavier Johnson's run. I mean, there were guys running 70 yards down the field, getting, blocks where they're knocking people to the ground. And I mean, there was like 3 of them downfield. Unbelievable effort. There was some really good clips in here that we show in the champions meeting. I think we had about 14 clips of just relentless effort, toughness, discipline, guys playing really hard. Some unbelievable clips on special teams of just guys laying out, knocking people over. So I think all those things lead to that. Now you got to bring it every week, but those are the things. In terms of the short yardage, that can be a part of it. You got to get movement. You got to run a guy over. You got to be physical, and we split the big one for on 3rd and 1 for the touchdown. That was great, but then there was some other ones that we got to do a better job of.
Right next door, Bill Landis. Right.
I guess maybe following up on that idea, Ryan, I think I might express this wrong, but I feel like sometimes you're in games where the margins can get so wide that maybe you have a luxury to kind of work through stuff during a game that other teams maybe don't have sometimes. Does that ever creep up in those situations where you're trying to cultivate something, you're trying to get good work in game situations in short yardage, where maybe if the situations were different, you wouldn't, as you said on Saturday, try to bang your head up against the wall?
Yes. Yeah. We have to get certain things done, and when you find yourself in certain games, and you got to do what's best for the future of where you're going, not always in that moment right there. There's the time and place for everything. We got to get that done, and we're going to keep working at it. And there's been good progress made, but those situations aren't going away, and we're going to keep working at it.
What is your, overall philosophy on throwing the ball in those situations? I think some people might look at that and say that's maybe a pretty aggressive mindset to throw it on 3rd and 1 where you can just kind of fall forward for a yard. But how do you balance the physicality you want with throwing the ball with the quarterback and receivers you have?
You know, when you look at those situations, you know, certainly running the ball, you have to at some point say, you know, we can run 1 yard, you know, and there's going to be a lot of guys in the box, and that's a mentality and a physicality. But there's been other times, and you guys have seen it, and 4th and 1 in the Rose Bowl, and we're shooting it down the field. So, you know, we're going to do what's best to win the game, but there's part of that mindset that, you know, we got to make a yard when it's, you know, 4th and 1.
Over here to the right, Adam King, WBNS.
You guys have 11 days until the big one here at the Shoe. What do you need to see at Maryland to know that this team is ready?
I mean, I don't think there's anything that we're going to say, you know, now we're ready to go play this game. We just got to keep doing what we're doing, keep preparing the way that we've prepared, play well, find a way to win the game, and then move on to that one.
You guys dealt with a lot of injuries this year. It seems like more than most seasons. How frustrating can that be at times for a team to kind of just having to keep change pieces? How ready is this team to just get back to full strength?
Yeah, I mean, it can be very frustrating for sure, but at the same time, it's part of the game, and you see it happening across the country week in and week out. We try to do everything we can to make sure they have everything they need to get back on the field or prevent themselves from getting injured. You know, the prevention is really through sports science, through monitoring and recovery, and then we have our sports medicine department that helps them once they have an injury to get back on the field. And those guys do an unbelievable job, and they work at it. And you know, there was a lot of guys that played in that game that, you know, were hurting. I mean, you know, you don't hear that because we don't really, you know, put it out there. But there was a handful of guys this time of year that were pushing through a lot of bumps and bruises and things like that because it's, you know, November in the Big Ten. That's how it goes. So, you know, we're working on healing up to get healthy, but we have the right mindset. And I think the way that you saw us play on Saturday, you can see that our guys are strong and they're persevering through it.
Right in front of him, Clay Hall, WSYX.
Ryan, you go back to 2018, and Jerry and Mike remind us in the notes, Haskins ran for 3 touchdowns that day. Were you calling those runs, or was that Urban who's in love with that quarterback run?
I think at that point of that season, that was a unique time. I think you remember there was a couple points in the season where we were really struggling just getting any kind of run game going. And, you know, there was a point where, you know, Dwayne scrambled and threw it down and actually got booed in Ohio Stadium for not, you know, running for a first down. And there was some hard feelings there for a couple of weeks. And, you know, Dwayne got challenged to, you know, get involved with the run game. And he did in that game, played really tough. And that was his hometown, you know, and all his friends and family were there. And, you know, during his service, you know, this past year, you know, that game was brought up as like a huge game for him and there's maturity as a player. And, boy, he played well in that game because that was, what was it, 52-51 back and forth. And what a strange game. But, you know, the message will be to our team this week. I mean, that was a wounded team that their head coach, I think, had been fired, and they still played us really, really well. And Maryland's always dangerous, especially there.
Right in front of him, Don Berry, WBNS.
Coach, you've said all year it doesn't matter who you're playing, it's about what you guys do. With that said, this is the time of the year you want to be playing your best ball. Obviously, the big one's looming. How close are you to playing what you would consider your best ball, and what do you want to see better this week?
You know, I feel like if you say you're playing your best ball, that means you played your best ball last week and you can't get any better than it the next week, you know. So I think it's this constant build and growth towards maximizing yourself in all 3 phases. Do I think we've played our best football yet? No, I don't. I think that we can play better in all 3 phases, and we're going to have to go reach our goals. So this is a constant chase towards, you know, being the best version of ourselves. And every week, that's the goal, is just to get better. And how fast can we get better in certain areas? And I think I've shared with you the challenge sometimes is the issues are there. They may not get exposed every week, but you got to identify what those issues are. And that's the art of, you know, coaching.
With that said, we know what's down the road. Do you feel an intensity shift, especially this week?
Yeah, we'll see as the week goes on. But our guys know what our goals are. We talked about it at the mid-year. You know, we were 6-0 going in to the bye, and we said, you know, none of our goals have been met. I reminded the guys on Sunday, none of our goals have been met. They know what's on the table, but you know, in order to go reach our goals, we got to win this game too. You know, it's part of the game. You got to win them all, and so we'll keep that one in the back of our mind like we do every single day out of the year. But we're going to focus on beating Maryland on Saturday.
Far left, Justin Holbrook, WCMH.
When it comes to a true freshman, especially like Dallin or Travion last year, what's the balance between maturity and character and ability, and why those two things work simultaneously, and why they can work right away when they get here?
Yeah, and that's a good question. I think that the talent has to be there, because if you don't have the talent, then it's hard to keep up. You know, it's hard to perform on the field. But if you don't have the maturity, like you said, the work ethic, the ability to process high levels of information, handle a brand new workload that you didn't have in high school, those add up real fast on you, especially this time of year. So, and then a lot of times guys hit a lull and they come back out of it. You know, they struggle. Like that really happened to Chris Olave his freshman year, but he was struggling. He wanted to go back to California in the worst way. And a couple guys put their arms around him. He came out of it. And then remember the game he had at the end of the year. So, I don't know if Dallin got that, low at some point. You'd have to ask him. But every freshman goes through it. And then if you can come out the back end, then usually you're stronger for it. And, good to see him play the way he did on Saturday. I'm sure that's going to give me more confidence.
Second row left, Steve Hellwagen, 24/7 Sports.
Yeah, Coach, I don't suppose you're going to tell us if Travion Henderson and Mine Williams are ready to practice or whatever, but just from a general standpoint, given the uncertainty, you're going to play with a running back. Just how do you prepare for this game with the idea they may practice half the time, they may not practice or play at all? Just from a general standpoint, how do you guys go into the week at that position?
In a perfect world, everyone's healthy and everyone's practicing and getting all the physical reps that you would need in a game week. We have physical reps and mental reps. And so what you have to do is you have to really focus hard on, if you're not getting all the reps that you need in practice, being in the back and getting the mental rep, putting yourself in there, actually physically walking through that rep and seeing the picture, then going through, watching the film and doing a lot of extra work on your own. That's why I give Xavier Johnson a lot of credit last week, because he didn't have all the physical reps, but he was able to put it on the field at a pretty high level when he was in there playing that position. So that'll be the challenge if those guys aren't able to physically practice as much.
Deep left, Nathan Baird, Cleveland.com.
Right, in a couple of years, we're going to be in a Big Ten with no divisions. And if that existed this year, you guys would already be guaranteed of playing Michigan after the Michigan game, playing them again for the Big Ten championship. Just curious how you think that changes the vibe around that game. Are you okay with this new setup in the Big Ten, even though it's going to come with something that maybe compromises what you get out of that game?
I remember initially thinking that very thing, but until you just said that, hadn't given it much thought recently. But it certainly does make you think for a second. I can't tell you I'm in a place to be focusing on anything other than trying to beat Maryland and going after those guys. But that'll be very unique for sure. I guess more like an NFL situation where you may have to play a team multiple times, and that would kind of affect maybe your game planning. But we'll worry about that when we get down the road.
Fourth row middle, Tony Girdman, Buckeye Huddle.
Ryan, the NFLPA, I don't know if you saw this, came out and asked to have an immediate ban and removal of all slip film turfs in the NFL, which is the same kind of turf here at Ohio State. I was wondering if you had any thoughts on that, if you had heard about that.
Split turn, I don't even know what that means.
The type of turf that Ohio State uses due to a higher number of injuries. I guess the NFLPA wants that stuff removed, and I just wondered if you had heard about that. Or
No, it's the first I've heard of any of that, yeah.
I can say, Tony, if you don't mind me interrupting there, that we've had some discussions, some of the administrators have here. I know the NFL is not mandating that these stadiums remove their fields. We test our fields twice a year annually. We'll continue to do that, but there has been some discussions about the topic that you're discussing. Yeah. Alrighty, front row right. Austin Ward, Rivals 97.1.
Got short yardage.
There's your excuse. Ryan, on Saturday alone, you had the magic with Cam Babb. Cam Brown came back for another year and more injuries and made a couple big plays. You had a former walk-on run for a 70-yard touchdown. From the outside, those look like things that validate the strength of your culture. They're also different kind of stories that maybe we were focusing on a year ago. How different does it feel this year to be in it compared to a year ago, just by direct comparison?
Yeah, you don't really prepare for a moment like Cam's or for kind of a day like that when you see things like that happen. It's just one of those things where it happened with the Lathan Ransom punt block. You just keep swinging at the rock, and eventually it cracks. And you saw some of that happen on Saturday. These are guys. You take Mitch Rossi for example. You take Xavier Johnson, Cam Babb. Guys who have overcome a lot of things. And you can see when Cam Brown is healthy, what he can do. And I mean, if we're going to get to where we need to go, he's going to have to be a major contributor. Talked to him about that last week. Talked to our guys about that. And that's part of this process. You think about where Cade was at, where Tommy was at. I mean, double hip labrum surgery as a freshman. I mean, there's so many things that come with it, and you overcome them and you get stronger. And that's life. And I mean, that's one of the reasons. One of the major reasons that I got into coaching was to watch and help people overcome adversity, because that's what life is. Adversity is coming around the corner every single day, and how you handle it as a person kind of defines who you are. And to see some of these guys learn that process and not just say, well, I want to go transfer. Xavier Johnson could have probably gone a lot of places and played a lot of football, but here he is as a Buckeye making an impact on a team that wants to go, chase some unbelievable goals. Cam Babb, what he's been through. And for Cam Brown too. I mean, what an opportunity he has now to write a story here down the stretch for himself. And you don't always recognize the opportunity that you have. And so we try hard to help our guys realize the opportunities right here. Because once it's gone, it's gone. You don't have this opportunity ever again. You look back the rest of your life. You have the rest of your life to go do other things. All of our energy right now needs to be focused on this team and where we're going. But I think there's been a lot of work done in the off season with Mick and the staff and our leaders to build that resilience and perseverance that you're talking about.
You're at the top, but you're just one person. Did you think that you needed to do anything differently to get that? You and Mick had conversations, I know, about leadership groups and all that. I mean, how much did you think, if you keep doing exactly what you're doing, then everyone will get on board, or how much do I need to change from one year to the next?
I mean, I think it's a little bit of everything. You look at, you evaluate everything, and you try to figure out, how to improve it. Some things you need to change, other things you don't need to change. Some guys just need more experience. Other things you do need to change. So we altered some things in the off season, like you said, with the leadership groups that I thought was huge. But also, sticking with what you believe in too, and having conviction in what the culture is all about, and having conviction in the people that you bring into the program, because we have recruited great people into this program, staff, coaches, and people and players. And when you have great people in the program, I mean, it's been said here a long time, you win with people, then you believe in them, then you trust it, then you just keep working forward, and you put your faith in people. So that's been the focus. Now we'll see if we can reach our goals.
Front row, Joey Kaufman, Columbus Dispatch.
Ryan, the moment that Cam Babb had was special, but what do you see moving forward? I guess the role he can have for you guys now that he's back, just as far as being that rotation and being a contributor week in and week out?
We'll see what he'll be able to do physically on a regular basis, and if he can take on more, then absolutely we'll give it to him. We'll just have to see how much his body will be willing to actually take on.
Do you have any sense on what he could take?
I actually don't.
Physically?
No, I actually don't. Yeah. I know that the setback in the preseason did set him back some, so we'll see how much he'll be able to take on moving forward. I hope it'll be a lot, but I just don't know.
If he is able to kind of withstand the workload, what are his best traits as a receiver from the times you've been able to kind of when he I know you guys were high in spring.
Very conscientious. I mean, very smart, understands the game, strong and powerful, explosive, good hands, runs really excellent routes, very accountable, good quickness in and out of the break. Really good body language. I know CJ really liked throwing him.
Fourth row left, Jacob Benz, the Lantern.
Yeah, hey Ryan, just going back to some of the Big Ten and things like that from a recruiting standpoint, after the conference announced the UCLA, USC going to join the conference later on this decade and whatnot, how have you seen maybe the recruiting ramp up in the months since the announcement, or do you see it maybe becoming more of a long-term thing where Big Ten schools become more prominent out there on the West Coast?
I think it's probably more of a long term. You'll see it over time. I don't think it was immediate, although we are recruiting guys from the West Coast. We have been, and there's been a lot of excitement about Ohio State, and the fact that now there's two teams from LA coming to the Big Ten. so that's been good, and I think it'll be positive because now we're a nationwide conference.
Front row middle, Bill Rabinowitz, Columbus Dispatch.
I hate to ask you about your least favorite topic, but you said after the game that you're optimistic that DeWand and Denzel will be able to play, and you expressed optimism about the running backs. Where does that stand right now?
Yeah, same. I feel the same way. We'll see as we get through the week. I think some guys will be on a pitch count. Some guys will have to see how practice goes today. But a lot of the stuff that we heard today and this morning was promising.
Okay. And about the 2018 game, one of the most pivotal plays in that game was you forwarding a pass to Rashad Berry, which is converted defensive end on 4th and 1. You don't convert it, you lose. How much have you thought about that play? And if it hadn't worked, who knows?
That was a moment where you called the best play you thought gave us a chance to win the game, and at that moment, that was it. And then I think after the game, I remember being with Coach Meyer, and he said, "You realize you called the pass on 4th and 1 to Rashad Berry, and if he doesn't catch that, then our season's a lot different." And you just one of those things. You just call it. The decision's been made. You make the decision usually in a moment like that. In a meeting room on a Wednesday, and you just call it, and you trust in your execution. But I had forgotten about that play until you just mentioned it.
And final questions, front row right, Tim May, Lettermen Row on 3.
Thank you, Jerry. Ryan, right now in the season, all these questions, whatever, especially about personnel, do you feel like you're driving a car where like pieces are flying off and a tire's going flat, and yet you're picking up speed? You understand what I'm saying? I mean, I would think the pressure. I mean, what is it like to be in that moment where you're trying to get a handle on going to Maryland? You don't know really who's going to be available. How does that just impact like planning and everything else? You understand what I'm asking?
Yeah. No, it's I guess it's part of being a college football coach right now. There's a lot of changes that go on, and you try to do the best you can to prepare for being in November in the Big Ten. This is just what we're dealing with. There's a lot of variables that come into play. And the only way to do that is to build a tremendous amount of depth. And that's where, I think back on the preseason when we're going through each position and, guys are asking questions about each position group. And it's like, well, who's going to get on the field? They're all going to get on the field. It's just the way it usually works. And it's rare that a position would just play one guy the whole year, just because it's such a long season, 9 conference games plus Notre Dame. So it's just something you plan for and try to have contingency plans in place.
And contingency-wise, could you see going into Saturday with Dallin Hayden being, in essence, a starter based on right now, and would Xavier be the backup? You know what I'm saying? Or do you think Chip can come back? I mean, can you live with that, I guess?
Yeah, I mean, we have to. We don't have a choice. That being said, we feel like we have a really good chance to get all those guys back for next week. Now, maybe one of them won't, but I'd be shocked if all 3, Chip, Mayan, and Trey would not be available. I think we'll get, hopefully at least 2 of them back and go from there. But I just don't know right now.
Is Thursday that magic day, though, when you find
Yeah, kind of. You get about 48 hours out, you got a pretty good feel.
And last question: what are y'all doing right now offensively that you really like? I mean, obviously throwing the ball. You're almost incomparable in that aspect. But what is it about this offense that just gets you going? Over 600 yards on Saturday, and all those problems I just mentioned, you dealt with.
Yeah, I think it's probably the balance that we have that, we worked hard on, is that, we have multiple personnel groupings. We have multiple ways to attack you in those groupings, vertically, horizontally. You heard me talk about those types of things. And when you can do that and you feel like you have weapons on the outside and they're in one-on-one situations, you got a great chance to be explosive. The minute they have to go double them or help them, then that opens up the run game. And so when you find that balance, I think that's where we're at our strength. And I feel like we've worked hard on having that balance.
Was it the Mitch Rossi play on that 4th and 1 that left you with that sour taste in your mouth?
Yeah, I think both of those plays.
Yeah.
Yeah, both of those plays. We didn't get the cutoff on the backside, and if we do, we actually hit it out the front door. It was a walk-in for a touchdown, but we didn't. So, and that's what it comes down to: competitive excellence.
Coach, thank you very
All right,
much.
thanks, guys.
Tim, you've actually run out of questions for this year.
I figured everybody else was asking. All good. All right, folks, we're going to open up the floor for Coach Knowles, Fourth Row Middle and Yanders Buckeye Sports Bulletin.
Yes, Coach. I know you said safety blitzes were one of the things that were kind of on the back burner. Saw a couple of those with Lathan against Indiana. Kind of what led you to incorporate those into the game plan, and then what you saw on those plays.
Yeah, I mean, it allows him, our safeties, to be aggressive. I mean, they're doing a good job of figuring out the plays and where they fit. I just think it allows us to play offense on defense more. Guys are getting more comfortable with the system. That's a part of it, and we're going to continue down that path.
Third row left, Dan Hope, 11 Warriors.
Jim, Ty Hamilton started for you guys the last couple of games. Just what have you seen in him that you like that's made you want him to play more?
Ty's like a cold-blooded gentleman, I guess I would say. And that you like quiet, good smile, but man, he's just really tough inside, and he's athletic. And I've seen him use his hands and get off blocks, you know, and make plays. So not only hold point, but I've seen his hand skills really developing, and you know, he's earned more playing time.
Front row right, Austin Ward, Rivals, 97.1.
Jim, Tommy would obviously never acknowledge or complain about the hand and the cast there. How big of a deal do you think that is for him? He's still obviously productive and out there for you quite a bit. Does it limit him at all, tackling or anything else out there?
You know, yeah, I mean, it's part of the game, but you know, the toughest guys don't let it limit them, you know, and he's one of them, you know. So you try not to talk about it. You try not to acknowledge it, because what's the plan, right? I mean, it's just a couple things you can do with tackling that I have talked to him about, you know, going lower, roll tackling, you know, using more of a single leg with the, you know, with the torque and sliding your arm through the leg. I mean, there's a couple things you can talk about, but for the most part, you just play through it, and Tommy's great about it.
Front row middle, Bill Rabinowitz, Columbus Dispatch.
You got Cam Brown back last week and Jordan Hancock back. How much of a lift does that give you? How do you think they played?
It's a big lift. You know, those are guys we had planned to be with us from the start, so it's good to have them back. And I thought they played well. You know, you saw Cam on a couple 50-50 balls deep, you know, which is that's a big deal. Some plays that maybe we didn't make earlier in the year. It was good to see him make those plays, and that does lift up the defense, and it breeds confidence.
Third row right, fourth row right, Spencer Holbrook, Lettermen Row.
Regarding the defensive line, I think Dan just asked you about Ty Hamilton, but Teron and Ty seem to be cementing themselves as those top two guys. What are you seeing, not just from Ty, but from those two working together, that makes the defensive line better?
Yeah, Teron, very similar. You know, it's one thing to hold the point, but to have the athleticism to then, what you saw Teron do also in the game, and you've seen him do it, to disengage from the block and make tackles. You know, that's like the next step. And so I think both of those guys are doing really good things in that area, and you're seeing that.
Second row left, Stephen Means, Cleveland.com.
Whether it's Jordan Hancock missing the first half of the season, basically Denzel and Cameron being out in and out and stuff, and then whatever's happened with the defensive line, it just doesn't feel like you got an opportunity to see what this defense looks like with all of its parts. And is there any excitement that maybe Maryland is the first opportunity for you to be able to do that? And as a guy who's a schemer and a thinker, you know, what kind of pops up in your head when you think of that?
I mean, it's a great point and valid, but I just don't think that way. I just think that's a luxury, you know, because this is big time college football, you know, and if you're going to be really good as a defense guy, you know, guys have to be able to come in and out and have depth. So And you know, sometimes when I was young, you'd go through plans where you might plan, okay, I got these guys back now, and I can do this, and then you're out of that on the first play of the game. So, really, it's just business as usual. It's nice, it's a good thing, but we just got to keep doing what we're doing.
Third row right, Rob Aller, Columbus Dispatch.
Jim, you go against this receiving core every day in practice. As a group, what impresses you about them? And then individually with Marvin, what kind of nightmare is he to defend for
As a group, you know, extremely hardworking and talented and competitive. You know, I think that whether it's 7-on-7, 1-on-1, I mean, our receivers are always going hard, and that's part of what I'm sure makes them great. And Marvin is just the best I've ever been around. You know, some of the catches that he makes in practice when they show up in the game, you know, we see it every day. You know, plus he's from a great high school. Yeah.
How do you defend a guy like that?
You have to try to double him, or you have to try to put. But I mean, he's made catches against us in practice, you know, in a bracket. So really, you have to change it up, and you know, because if he knows what you're doing and CJ knows what you're doing, they're going to make plays.
Second row right, Bill Landis, Rivals.
Jim, now that you have sort of 10 games of seeing it, how do you think that Jack has taken to some of the stuff you're doing with him with the jack position, and what did you think of his play on Saturday, finally getting for a few sacks?
Yeah, good. You know, I you know, he's embraced it. You know, I keep encouraging him to even be more reckless. I think that's part of the position where he can grow, we can grow, and it's, you know, you may make some mistakes, but I want to see him be more reckless. And Jack wants to do the right thing, and he's and you know, great team guy. I got to try to find more ways just to cut him loose, you know, and just, you know, let him play free.
You sense him being cautious? Is that what you
Not cautious. No, he just, you know, sometimes the more you pile on, this is what the debate always is for me. The more you pile on a guy, you know, and I can do that with that position. Like, you know, go here against this set, go here against this set, cover this guard in this set. You know what I mean? Now it's not cautious, it's thinking. And if a guy is thinking too much, he can't play free. So that's on me. But he's doing a good job. I got to just do more to really cut him loose.
Second row right, Doug Lamb-Reese, Cleveland.com.
Follow up on that, Jim. So often it seems like with defense, right? It's stay in your gap, do your job, everybody fill your responsibility. Is it hard to communicate this to a player, this idea of recklessness? Because it maybe sounds like it's like, hey, 10 other guys do your job, and then Jack, you make it happen.
Absolutely, yeah, because you do spend a lot of time on gap responsibility, defensive responsibility, being sound in your approach, and we have that in some of our other things. So, yeah, there is a tipping point, which I think has taken some time over the years that I've used it to where, you know, they really get it. Where now it's okay. Yeah, all 10 of you other guys, make sure you're sound because this guy's just going to go tear it up, you know. And I think we're still working towards that point.
And then just a different topic. You guys are giving up barely over 3 yards per rush attempt as a defense. Just philosophically for you, like, what is it that goes into being a great defense against the run, and where do you think you guys are right now in that pursuit?
You know, obviously, cliche, but it starts up front, right? You have to be able to control the gap you're assigned whether it's through stunt or base, you got to be able to whip people with your front, and that sets everything else up. After that, it comes to an understanding by really the linebackers and the safeties, and I think you've seen that with the development of Tommy and Steele and Lathan, Ronnie making these plays, that it just comes to an understanding that, okay, this is the defense that we called, this is the play they're running, where's the ball going to end up? How do these two parts fit together? And then there's always, because it's defense, right? You really need like 14 guys to defend everything, but so there's always going to be what I call that escape hatch, and it's now the linebackers and safeties know exactly where that escape hatch is going to be, and that allows you to play fast. And to me, that's the key to being a great run defense.
Fourth row right, Cameron T. Robinson, The Athletic. Jim, kind of off that, I think the flashy thing on the end of the line is edge rushers, like go get sacks. That's what people would love to see. But inside, like you say things start up front. How important have guys like Ty and Teron been? It's starting things inside. It's not really
I think I said it last week. There's nothing sexy about it. I mean, it is just hard work. It's hard work, and it's the the way football was initially created. Those battles at the line of scrimmage, and it's morphed a lot since then. But it still takes place, and you still need your tough guys to be tough, and that's where we've gotten such great play out of our tackles, and it's going to be key as we move forward.
You're able to mix strong interior play with really good edge rushers. As defensive coordinator, how much does that allow you to open up and freely kind of change how you want things on the backside?
Yeah, it gives you a lot of flexibility, because if you're not right, you try to be right all the time, but if you can't be right, that, and you're releasing people, from maybe their run responsibility because you have some tackles that can just whip people and make plays, that helps a lot in play calling.
Second row left, Steve Hellwig at 24/7 Sports.
Yeah, Coach, somebody averaged out the offenses you guys have played through 10 weeks, and the average national ranking is 93rd. And some of these teams we've watched have, you seem like you're struggling.
Go ahead.
You're struggling as much as some of these offenses have struggled against you guys to get first downs. But this changes this week. This team's in the 60s. The team you play next week's in the 20s. Just how confident are you that your team, your defense, is ready to play against two of the better offenses it's going to see all season?
I'm confident, we're doing all the right things against whoever they line up in front of us. When you say that, yeah, I don't really look at rankings or anything like that truly until the end of the year, right? Because that's the only thing really when you look back and kind of see how you held up against other people. So, you just have to take it week to week with whoever you're playing, and have great habits that turn into a lifestyle, and demeanor and attitude. It's the same thing no matter who you're playing or what they rank. And if you ever look past somebody because they don't have the right ranking, you're in trouble. So I like our progress. We still have a lot of work to accomplish, but I like what we've done so far, in being ready to be relied upon and counted on when the times, when times get tough. I think that's ultimately what you want out of a defense.
And Maryland, just up until the last 2 weeks, they've been pretty good on offense. Just I know Wisconsin and Penn State locked them up pretty good here the last couple of weeks. The conditions may not have been good with the Wisconsin game, kind of like what you guys had at Northwestern. But what do you see with Maryland's offense and their quarterback? I think he's a 3-year guy. Just what can they do?
Yeah, the quarterback is a really good scrambler and playmaker. Maybe a little banged up. Maybe that's just why they've struggled a little bit. But I think everything flows through him, and he's dangerous. And they have skilled guys at wide receiver and the tight end position. I think the 1-2 targets. So, in a spread attack, they're dangerous. I can see why they played well. Maybe recently, they haven't. But when you look at the totality of the season, it gives you reason to believe you better be prepared.
We got time for just a couple more questions. Deep left, Nathan Barrett, Cleveland.com.
I just wanted to sort of clarify the situation with Ty Hamilton getting the starts the last couple weeks. Is Mike Hall still on more of a pitch count scenario that you're trying to save him for maximum effort down the line, or is Ty really the guy who should start now from a more complete standpoint, and Mike's got a more specialized?
Yeah, I mean, Ty's played extremely well, so I mean, he deserves that opportunity. But to compare him to what's happening with Mike is wrong, because Mike has really battled injuries. So it's not so much a question of saving him. It's just kind of week to week how Mike is feeling and what he can do. So what he can do on a given Saturday is what he can do. He'll give us everything he has, but he's really fought through some things.
And final questions, taking us home, Tim May, Lettermen Row on 3.
First, how close did you guys come to a not perfect game, but Saturday, the one blown coverage, it gives him the deep pass, it sets up one touchdown, and then after that muff punt, the guys screaming to the hitch when in fact they ran an exploding, basically I call it exploding bunch there or whatever, and got the guy wide open. Were y'all that close to like that game? You understand what I'm saying that you're looking for? And do those two plays kind of haunt you a little bit?
They haunt me a lot. Yeah, I mean, until, whenever you move on, you got to move on. Yeah. But they're recorded and etched forever in the explode. I mean, they go. We'll be studying the heck out of them in the off season because they go into that explode feeded. So but they did have 5. And that reverse that they had too, which was we had plenty of opportunities to make plays on that. So, and then they had a quarterback scramble. I know, which went for like 16, and there was one other one I can't remember. So, yeah, the post. That's right. So yeah, take out those 5 plays, and then it was a good game. Yeah, that's exactly. No, I mean everything else was pretty good, but yeah, those explosive plays, we study them, we talk about them, and you try to figure out why they happened. And so they don't happen again, but otherwise, yeah, it was pretty good across the board.
Hey Jim, I just got 2 other quickies. But they come out, like I called it. They came out in the second half with just this razzle dazzle. We're just gonna. I mean, what was that like watching that? From the press box, they run a couple of plays that were just off the chart. You know what I mean? And what was your message down to the field? If you could even do that, everybody settle down, blah, blah,
Right, yeah. No, it's you don't do anything during the series except, maybe adjust the calls as you get the feel for it. But, credit to them for the first one. Great job by us on the second one, but for I think it was Ronnie, right? Kept his eyes on his man the whole way, because those plays are tough. As the play gets extended and you got guys who are leaking out and double reverse, those are tough and really a challenge of your discipline, and Ronnie did a good job.
Hey, listen, Lathan Ransom, talked about him many times in here and stuff, but is he the kind of guy you can pile some stuff on? I mean, he seems to have a feel for the game as much as he does for what his role is in it. I mean, am I wrong about that? I mean,
he's a football guy, right? So he can get what you're talking about and understand it and execute it, right? So you can ask him to do some things, just talking about something today. I was in with hey, okay, we'll just get Lathan to do this against this play, right? I mean, so you start to put more on him, as you see things develop, and you say, well, if I can just take this one guy, I can fix this problem, and he is that kind of guy. But it's still my job to make sure he plays fast. So I mean, that's what coaches have to remember, is maybe a little thing to me as a coach, but everything you put on a kid kind of can pile up and then lead to them not being as aggressive as fast. But he is in my mind as a guy who can handle a lot of things. I just got to be careful how much I put on him.
Coach, thank you very much. Thanks, Jim. All right, folks, well, I just have everyone, so next week, the plan is Tuesday. Team's got a typical week next week.